Hi everyone, welcome to our webinar, Canadian Softlanding, Canadian Startup Visa or Softlanding Program. Thank you for being here today. We are presenting today a webinar about the main programs that we have in Canada regarding Softlanding and of course the Canadian Startup Visa. So if you have any questions or comments, please contact us to contact@latamstartup.biz, or you can go also to Twitter and the hashtag LatamStartups, and we are going to get your questions through that hashtag. So just wait until we finish the webinar and we actually can, answer your questions about the programs that we have here in Canada. So let's start. For those that have had the opportunity to attend some of their webinars about Canada, you may know already that Canada has a great supportive startup ecosystem with a great number of business incubators, accelerators, and very well recognized innovation centers in the country. And you also know that main startup activity is concentrated probably in the provinces of Ontario, which have some cities like Toronto, Waterloo, and Ottawa, British Columbia, and specifically Vancouver, and Quebec, Montreal. So, Canada has different type of visas for people wanting to come here. Either this is a skill, you're looking for a skilled worker visa or a permanent resident visa or an investor visa. For startups, there are other kind of alternatives to apply for a visa that matches better with their situation. In this webinar, we aim to provide you the information to consider an application for a Canadian startup visa or for a soft landing program. Making a difference between one and another, we can say the startup visa is a process to immigrate as a resident into Canada under some special conditions. These soft-landing programs provide some special invitations to join programs in some of the Canadian business incubators, innovation centers, or accelerators in the country. These programs are designed to be for a specific time, usually less than the length of time of a startup visa, and are perfect to prove the market. This is very important for you guys because normally, you can go and try to apply for a startup visa immediately, but without to know in advance if your startup will have a good match here. Probably, avoid all that process first and try with a soft landing program. That could be a good alternative for you to choose to see for a few months or a couple of weeks if your startup actually will have some future here in North America. So let's start with the Canadian Startup Visa. What exactly is the program? This actually program was created by the government of Canada, targeting international startups that can add value to the Canadian startup ecosystem by bringing their innovative companies to Canada in order to compete globally. Now, when we are talking about bringing the companies here, it's not usually in terms that you need to close your company in your country and come here. Is in the terms of expansion of your company. Canada is very well connected in North America through, US and Europe. Also, they have great connections there. But in order to actually accept startups, well, usually they won't ask you to close your business, but they will ask you actually to, expand your business here in Canada. So how do you do it? You find a form in the Immigration and Citizenship website, CIC, and you determine if your startup apply for a startup visa. Don't worry, after we finish the webinar, we're going to send you the links, so you will find the forms and you find the information directly from the government, so you can download those forms if you're interested in to actually apply for a startup visa. Um, the government will ask you to fill out an application package to pay an application fee. So that's why they say they're to pay fees. That fees will depend, the type of visa. In case this is startup visa, some people will come, alone. Some people will come with their families. So as per the government, the startup visa is part of the permanent residence here in Canada. So those fees may apply depending of that. Uh, Also, at the end, you just submit the application. So it looks pretty easy, but it's not that easy. We'll go through all that in just a minute. The requirements are to have a supporting letter from a designated angel investor group, venture capital fund, or business incubator. Meet the ownership requirements for a qualified business. That means that you have to prove that actually you own your startup, and have a good level of English or French or both. Um, the English is not like you have to be totally fluent. You need to have a good level of conversational English to actually to apply for this type of visas. Have a minimum of money to establish in Canada. So we'll go through all that in just 1 minute. um, okay. The filling of the paperwork, you know uh, it will be sometimes not as fast as you like to get information, or to get somebody back with responses from the government. So that's why he will add some recommendations for you before you ever apply, or before you ever start to look at those documents. It will depend. Our first consideration for you is to research previous experiences. Other international startups have already passed this process, and they can help you to avoid some mistakes. And the other recommendation will be to find companies that are supporting startups through the startup visa. Canada has a list of companies, including angels and VCs, that are actually supporting international startup with this type of visa. And that list is available online, so we can pass it to you as well, guys, once we finish the webinar. Now, there are more than 20 VC funds with permissions to support international startups through the Startup Visa program. There are also about 6 angel funds that have been approved by this program, and also 14 business incubators. The Canadian Startup Visa is new. Expect delays. This is a pilot program, so try to connect with those institutions that already have experience working with the Canadian Startup Visa program. And we are going to mention some here. You can see there. Oh, actually, we put it Ryerson Futures Inc. That's one of the companies. Is a business incubator here in Toronto. We can pass you the link after the webinar as well. And they already have experience bringing international startups here to Toronto. There are also Stream Ventures Partners and Highline BC. Highline BC in particular, they were before, until I believe 2013, there were 2 companies. It was called Grow Labs, one of them, and that company, Grow Labs in Vancouver, actually brought the first international startups through the Startup Visa program. So they already have a really good experience through the program and how to bring those startups here. I'm sure there are more, those 3 that have brought some international startups here, but those are the ones that we know have experience already bringing international startups through the program. So how you connect with them? Just go to their website, send a simple email asking about the process. You can also try to search in LinkedIn for some of the somebody working in those companies, connect with them and ask them how to get more information about the process. Uh, it's not that hard really. Like for some people in Latin America, sometimes this kind of approach will feel like a waste of your time or something like that. Is not actually people here, they get back to your emails, they are going to tell you, sorry, we cannot really provide the information your requirement, or probably your profile is not what we are looking for, but they are going to answer. And if you're lucky, those companies can actually supporting you with a letter to come here through that program. The Canadian government was planning to grant around 2,750 visas, and they are not even close to that number at this point. Once you get the support from the companies, you research. Once you get the support from those companies, you will see that the process is going to get just smoothly after that. Um, but for sure the government is going to ask you for that letter of support as part of the application process. So what is the kind of financial support you get? Like if you are applying through an investor angel group here, the government is asking them to support you with a minimum of $75,000 in order to come here under the startup visa. If you are applying through a business firms, then they are going to ask them to support you at least with $200,000 to come here. Now, if you are applying through a business incubator, they are not going to ask the business incubator to actually, do pass any kind of financial support to you guys, because it's just a business incubator. Uh, you should also know that you don't need to secure any kind of financial support, from those business incubators. If your business fail, this is not going to affect your permanent residence status. The program understands that not all business will continue as their high level, as all of these startups normally is high level risk for the government. So they understand that this is not like you need to really succeed here or something is going to happen. You still will have your visa, you still will have your permanent residence situation here in Canada. It doesn't affect that part. Now, if you are already dizzy with all this information and you are thinking twice, we'd like to let you know other startups that also pass for the same process, and it was just overwhelming as it sounds here. The good news is that they opened the door for you guys, for those that are looking forward to come here, and now the process has been improving. So the initial mistakes really are gone. The Ukrainian-born entrepreneurs Stanislav Korsay and Alexandra Sadorosny, sorry, but it's a really difficult last name, decide to uproot their labs and move to Canada, searching for a better business environment. They really didn't imagine how well it will go, at least not so quickly. Uh, those were some of the first startup applying through the Startup Visa program. Lucky for them, they didn't spend too much time in Canada until HotSuite, one of the Canadian unicorns, acquired this international startup. They got their visa in July 2014, and now Stanislav and Oksandra are working at HotSuite actually. So some of the things that they were revealing during an interview was that they were talking about immigration to another country, and it was relatively fast and easy for them. And for both men, they are already moved here to Canada with their families. HotSuite CEO Ryan Holmes mentioned it in some point in the same interview that we need more people like this in our country. describing cells is the name of this startup from Ukraine as classic entrepreneurs who took a huge risk to grow their business. If you want to talk about return on investment from a Canadian policy perspective, I bet this is one initiative alone more than pays for itself home sales. And this is really not the only case. Has been other startups that also apply for the startup visa, and I'm glad to present this one here. Latin American startup Jose Barrios with his company Cogni Labs was also one of the first international startups applying to the startup visa program. Jose Barrios is a Mexican-born co-founder, as I said, of Cogni Labs. The company initially was based in Vancouver, then they moved to Victoria, which is really close to Vancouver. They have an online lab for human behavior research, and uh, yeah, and it was one of the first applicants, but experienced delays after his temporary resident permit. And Jose passed through so much through that first experience for his visa, and he had to temporarily move to US, and then after he got everything, he moved back to Canada. And this is what he said: I strongly believe that the Canadian immigration system will step up and will help more entrepreneurs like me to grow our companies in Canada. And Jose also mentioned it: I'll chase my dreams wherever they may lead. That said, I hope my dreams and I can finally settle down and call Canada our home. And that's what actually is Canada right now for Jose. Is his home. He has Cogni Labs in Victoria. He has a tremendous, successful startup right now there, and it has been supported by all the great community we have there. Now, that was before about the startup visa, but what about the Softlanding program? Several supporters from the startup community have thought about how to create a program that makes easier for international startups to taste the market before they actually move to the country. Some examples are DMC and Community. They have flexible programs that allows any startup to contact them to be part of their communities. And of course, if their profiles are good and match for their business, for instance, if you go to the MC website, you will see there what kind of requirements they have there in this business incubator. You will find the link apply. This is not just for Canadian startups, but also for international startups. And I want to remind you, if you don't know, that DMC is the #1 business incubator in North America and the third one ranking in the global market. So DMC really, is one of the main incubators here around the world. And the rate of success for DMC is over 65%, meaning that most of their startups are still in the market. They still have sales after the third year. Now they have a special program there. And if you see others in the market as Communitech, that is an innovation center in Waterloo, their rate of success is also over 65%. So for those applying to DMC, they need to be focused on solving a real problem, economic or social, making innovative use of technology, hardware or software as part of the solution. Have a working prototype of your solution. That's the minimum to enter to the market. Be able to show evidence of market validation. And that part is more like if you already have customers or users, or you have feedback about how is your startup going, and have potential to grow and scale and achieve high impact, have lean canvas and business model, and have a leadership team that also are very well, driving and coachable and cooperative people with some experience in the area of focus. So if really you see here what's the main thing for DMC is actually to get a good team with a good innovative solution for the market. Of course, this solution must be a global solution, as any other business incubator today are looking for. And then you're basically in now, again, it's not that easy as it looks here. You are applying the process after you apply. It depends, of the committee, how that the research about your startup and your responses and any attach that you can get to them. Um, One recommendation that we have for you guys that regarding soft landing programs, don't apply without to connect with somebody at DMC. The same process with Communitech or any other business incubator or innovation center. We want to create a relationship first, and you want somebody recommending your startup because it will make the process easy. Also, when you talk with somebody inside, you can get pretty much, you can save some time and know in front if your startup may meet the qualified criteria. Canadians are very welcoming people. They are not too much of the complicated lobby that we have sometimes in Latin America in order to meet the right person or a high level, executive. I can tell you from our experience here, it's 100 times easier to connect with a CEO in Canada than in Latin America. We don't need the red carpet here. And again, the process is not simple. It's not a fairy tale for startups. It has some challenges as you get your research and connections done, and once you have that to fill out the paperwork, will not be a funny time either, but it will be worth it, as it was for Jose and it was for Stelinav as for his co-founder as well. Those are just three examples of the startups that actually apply for the startup visa. Now, and regarding the Softlanding program, we also have another example that you can see, how their startups have got through all this. And one of them is Wallace Santos. So if you haven't seen the interview with Wallace Santos, he's a Brazilian startup. He applied for a soft landing program in Communitech. And he mentioned it was so easy. He can explain how he got his visa and paperwork done in such a short time. And actually, he mentioned it in the interview. You will see that his startup visa, his soft landing program, when he applied, actually he got the answer like in 4 days. It was pretty much forward, the answer that he got from Communitech. And actually, he said that the delay was in his side because he had to get some things done before he applied for the visa. But we are going to send you also the link, and I believe we send you those links through Eventbrite for those that had the information through Eventbrite. We sent the link of his interview, but for sure today we are going to apply. We are going to send again those links with 21 minutes interview with Wallace Santos, and take advantage of that interview and research more about how was his experience. He actually, authorized us to provide his email address so anybody can contact him and ask him how was the experience and what kind of paperwork he had to present and everything. It seems like it was super easy for him. Now, those were the two programs, the startup visa programs and the soft landing program. As you can see, it was detailed enough for you to start research about both. Our recommendation for international startups normally is, if you haven't had previous experience with Canada or with Canadian investors or Canadian incubators, then try first with the soft landing program because it's going to be easier. In so many ways, you can test your startup before you actually come here. But if you have already a good relationship, or you establish some connections already with some of the angel firms or the VC funds that are in Canada, and you believe that you can get from them some kind of support to get you here, then go ahead and try the startup visa program. It seems easier sometimes to get the startup visa program also through those business incubators and innovation centers that have already, applied for the startup visa program. Just because for them, you don't need to have those special requirements, like the funding requirement that the government is asking to angel funds or to VCs. Now, of course, being a startup, you will need for sure funding. So once you are here in Canada, I can tell you for sure you are going to get funded for from many different ways, either by the government through some grants, either by other supporters in the Canadian ecosystem, as for example Futurepreneur, and there are so many others here like Fundica. They are actually providing funding to startups that are established in Canada, and of course those that are in US too, because we work a lot with US. And then you get different sources of funding here in Canada, so you just don't go directly to the angel investors. So if you have questions about exactly, how to go through the process, like the paperwork, the technical part of the startup visa, our next webinar will be actually about how to incorporate in Canada. And Peter here from Conduit Law, he's going to, tell us how to incorporate in Canada. It's very easy, very simple. It's not really expensive. So you can ask him how to do it. We are going to have good questions for him. And Rene here, he's immigration. So he actually, Rene has some experience already with this startup visa program. So we believe they are going to he's going to answer those questions, technical questions about the paperwork and all that. Other than that, the process is really easy, once you get the support of the right people to get your letter and the application form done. So it's not really complicated. It's more like the complicated part will be actually to get the support and actually to get into a program, or to find that investor that will support you to come here. As you could see in the other examples, it's not impossible. There are many other startups that have passed through those ones. We wanted to focus in some Latin American startups that had good experience either with the startup visa program or the soft landing program. So also to mention, that one incorporating your startup in Canada is going to be our last webinar about Canada for this season. And once we finish there, we are going to keep providing information about Canada, about events, about financial support, and about connections with the Canadian ecosystem through our newsletter. It's important for you to know that our next conference, Latam Startup Conference, is going to be in Mexico, and there you are going to meet most of the players here in Canada from the startup ecosystem. So if you guys have any questions, please let us know now. Okay, we have a first question here from Carlos in Brazil. And he's asking how long is the process to get the startup visa? Well, the startup visa, when those first apply, as far as we know, the startup visa was as long as 6 months, what they spent into the whole process. Today, I understand from many sources that the time to process a startup visa is so much less. So for the last experience that we hear, it was less than 3 months for the startup visa process. Margarita from Colombia, she's asking about the Softlanding program as well, like how long it takes to get this done through the Softlanding program. Well, it depends, Margarita. If you really, start a relationship with an incubator here, or one of the, normally it's a business incubator here. If you already have that, then, it's going to take probably less than 2 weeks. It depends. Each case is very different. For Wallace, it took actually 2 weeks to get his visa done, and it will depend if you have to qualify a startup for those business incubators. Now, if, for example, if you go to previous webinars that we have, you can see there that some of the startups that already we have some information, sorry, about the startup ecosystem here in Canada and what kind of sectors are booming here in Canada. So for those sectors, those that match with those sectors, it will have a big potential to be part of the community. And because we already have some research in Latin America, we know in advance that there are, some good matches between the Latin American and the Canadian startup ecosystem. So if you guys have any other questions, please let us know. Once again, the process is really straightforward. It's not really complicated. The forms are a pain. I passed through part of those forms, and it's just too much information that you have to provide. It's more like personal information more than the company information, because you get a permanent residence visa. So for that part, that's the tricky part sometimes here in Canada, to get all those paperwork done. But Wallace did it in 4 days, so it was pretty good for him. For Jose, we know that he had some troubles at the beginning, but he was one of the first startups actually, looking in the into the startup program. So let's see. Yeah. So those are the questions for now. If you have more questions for those lawyers that are putting their time in the next webinar, just let us know, and we are happy to connect with them. And you can also submit your questions before, they start the webinar, if you have some before. Thank you so much for attending today, and please contact us if you have any comments and questions. Bye now.